Gracia, member of the High Chamber of Russia.
Your Excellency, Mr. Chair, on behalf of the Russian delegation, I'd like to thank our Brazilian friends for their warm hospitality. We are all witnessing a transition away from an obsolete unipolar world order to a multipolar framework with greater justice for all. There are new emerging centers of economic growth, of financial and political influence in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and in the Middle East. More and more leading regional powers are stepping forward to assert their sovereignty and independent foreign policies. Countries of what we call the Global South and East are claiming the place they deserve on the international stage and want others to take their interests into account. Unfortunately, not everyone is ready to accept these objective and irreversible shifts. In fact, the collective West has been using its would-be efforts to ensure the rule of law in international affairs to promote its rules-based order, which consists of interpreting what once seemed as universally recognized international norms as they deem fit, depending on the momentary vested interest. Let me note that many of, if not all, global challenges result from attempts by the West to preserve their dominance in international affairs and to develop at the expense of the rest of the world. This includes global food and energy security, limited access to funding, unequal representation in international institutions, and regional conflicts, of course. The West believes in its global dominance and wants to preserve it, but these efforts serve as a destabilizing factor. They have been sending a lot of weapons and munitions to Ukraine while turning a blind eye to the human suffering in the developing world. 1.1 billion people today suffer from extreme poverty, and over one-half of these poor are under 18 years old. There are children. There are attempts to hijack the agenda within the key interstate frameworks and to subvert the UN Charter's key tenets. These efforts undermine universal multilateral institutions and compromise their ability to ensure a balance of interests. Russia has been consistent in its efforts to reinforce the UN's central role in international affairs in fully keeping with its charter and other norms of international law. At the same time, we must make sure that the UN Security Council meets present-day reality and requirements. We need to enable countries of the Global South in Asia, Africa, and Latin America to enjoy wider representation within this framework. They are the ones who must become a new pillar of this emerging global architecture. The collective West has failed to outcompete these new centers of economic growth and has turned up its sanctions pressure, including through secondary sanctions. In particular, Russia currently faces almost 29,000 illegitimate restrictions and sanctions, but our economy has been able to adapt and has remained resilient. Russia is committed to equal dialogue and promoting cooperation. BRICS countries have learned to live with sanctions. Quite often these measures fail to live up to their purpose, but they have a negative impact on the global economy. These reckless steps undermine trust towards the existing financial mechanisms and instruments, including the US dollar. In today's world, parliaments play an increasingly important role in building fair, equal, and a representative world order. As legislators, we must promote honest and sincere dialogue among all stakeholders, and we welcome the mutually respectful conversations we have at interparliamentary platforms. On a special note, let me say that Russia came forward with the initiative to establish the BRICS Plus geopolitical group within the IPU in order to enable BRICS parliamentarians to find ways to overcome present-day challenges. We represent the people of our countries and need to coordinate our efforts and need a solid foundation for that. BRICS countries have been making a meaningful contribution to addressing challenges the world is facing today. We may be thousands of kilometers apart, but BRICS parliamentarians have been always in touch. We see a shared commitment to promoting open and trust-based dialogue in various sectors, and this forum is further evidence of the fact that we have unlimited potential when it comes to strengthening our cooperation. Colleagues, we all understand that dialogue and equal cooperation are instrumental for building a world of harmony with shared prosperity. This has been a defining tenet for BRICS for many years. We expect the 11th BRICS Parliamentary Forum to become yet another step in this direction. Thank you for your attention.
Now I invite Ms. Ana Maria Mari Machado, Vice President of the Cuban Parliament.
Buenas tardes, Presidente.
Good afternoon, President and other participants, distinguished heads of delegations and other participants in the forum, the Parliamentary Forum of the BRICS. Please receive the Cuban hug here and the team here present. From Cuba, we ratify in this forum the defense of multilateralism. At the same time, we reiterate our rejection of all wars, including non-conventional wars, attempts of reimpose an unipolar international order, and the plundering and theft of natural resources, or the imposition of unilateral coercive measures or pressures of all kinds, and of all those aggressions that threatens multilateralism, that undermines international peace and stability, and disrespects the provisions of the charters of the United Nations. We consider that the parliamentary dialogue within the BRICS framework acquires special relevance, being the spokesperson of the interests of our people, representatives of their political and national will, and being aware of the real demands, feelings, and needs of millions of people all around the world. In this sense, the parliamentarians of the BRICS and its parliaments, if we propose ourselves, we are in conditions to support the construction of a multilateral structure that meets the needs of the citizens that representing different countries, larger or small, in territorial dimensions and with different levels of development. The way to guarantee peaceful coexistence, preserve international peace and security is the defense of the multilateralism. In addition to the full respect of the Charter of the United Nations and the principles and norms of international law, it is necessary to promote dialogue, solidarity, and international cooperation. It's urgent to establish a just, democratic, and equitable international order to eliminate the root causes of hunger and inequality. We have to prove laws that contribute to the progress regarding sustainable development. It goes beyond the gross domestic product to define the access of developing countries to financing on favorable terms and an adequate technical cooperation. In this sense, we'd like to highlight that the right to live in peace with security, with peace and security is threatened by the imperialism that defenders of the sovereignty of the people, defenders of the rights of humanities, the application of the norms, commercial norms, and using different modalities of payments and political pressure in an attempt to maintain its hegemony. United States has strengthened their measures, especially in the pandemic, during pandemic that we've survived. The same way the inclusion of our inclusions in the illegal lists of countries that support terrorism is a measure that has no basis, and it represents a terrible damage to our people. Facing these blockages, our countries has managed to move forward and has demonstrated the will and capacity to continue operating with other nations. Once again, we thank you for the solidarity received in the face of the blockage and other aggressions from the United States. In a world marked with so many challenges, the BRICS is an important group that should build a future world. The BRICS parliamentarians is reinforcing and supporting this group for a model that's more egalitarian. We celebrated that this mechanism of having the local currency imposing technological advantages. We want to promote solidarity and cooperation and implemented decisions for our countries to take our collaborations into a next level. We are happy to contribute to this mechanism.
Countries and our states promoting the development of cooperation, helping to increase participation of national exchange currencies to consolidate our strength that must be the unity in diversity. Lastly, we would like to advance in the reform of the multilateral architecture for peace and security for a more just and sustainable future. That's our duty. Let's do that. Let's commit to that, and this become not only a meeting, but we have agreements to complement what we have agreed between our countries. Thank you so much.
I now invite to the floor Mr. Sergei Hashkov, President of the Lower Chamber of Belarus.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, in the context of the lasted for decades the Cold War, the global military and ideological confrontation between East and West, a security architecture was created in the European space with the participation of extra-regional players with an extensive system of mutually complementary political and legally binding mechanisms in the sphere of arms control and confidence-building measures. It would seem that all mechanisms were created and functioned, putting into practice the principle of indivisibility of security, solemnly proclaimed in the Helsinki Final Act, and subsequently recorded in a number of fundamental OSCE documents. Why then did this mechanism fail? The answer is obvious. The existing architecture did not take into account the interests of all participants equally and fully. And therefore, the existing military political instruments could not prevent the crisis of the European security system, which resulted in open armed confrontation in the region. Although the beginning of this was laid back in 1999, with the bombing of Yugoslavia in violation of the UN Security Council resolution and NATO expansion to the east. As a result, we have a profound crisis of international relations. Against this background, the global geopolitical landscape is being transformed. This is a painful process. After all, supporters of a unipolar world order are trying with all their might to retain the hegemony that is slipping out of their hands. At the same time, this process is inevitable. The breakdown of the existing world order marks the transition from a unipolar to multipolar and polycentricity. The European Atlantic security model, which has never been able to provide its worth, is being replaced by a Eurasian security architecture with a new generation of organizations. In Eurasia, there is a deep understanding of the principles of justice and equality, a full awareness of the importance of the principle of indivisibility of security, and a greater respect for international law, national, religious, and cultural characteristics of each other. Eurasia is developing its own structures, such as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, the Association of Southern Eastern Nations, the Conference of Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia, which deal, among other affairs, with security and stability issues. For the BRICS countries, it would be worth to know that the Belarusian side, supported by the Russian Federation, launched the process of discussing the prospects for building a security architecture during a high-level international conference, Eurasia Security Reality and Prospects in Transforming World, which was held in October 2023 in Minsk. At the conference, the Belarusian side put forward an initiative to develop the Charter of Diversity and Multipolarity in the 21st century. The idea of the Charter is not taken out of thin air, but it is one of the practical elements of the initiative to recognize the diversity of paths of progressive development as a value of human civilization put forward by the President of the Republic of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, at the United Nations Summit in 2005. The initiative to develop the Charter is designed to contribute to the construction of the fair world order based on the principles of indivisible security, equality, mutual respect, and cooperation. The Charter could formulate the parameters and principles of the function of the security architecture, as well as a strategic vision of the multipolarity of the updated system of international relations. Speaking at the second Minsk International Conference on Eurasian Security held on October-November 2024, the head of the Belarusian state said that the Charter should accelerate the processes of political, economic, and other consolidation in order to ensure security, strategic stability, and the progressive development of our countries and peoples. The President of Belarus called for getting rid of prejudices and stereotypes and starting to painstakingly build a dialogue step by step, looking for points of contact and rapprochement. He advocates the creation of a common space of trust and cooperation for the unification of countries, not against anyone, but in the name of a common goal in order to avoid a fatal civilization rift. At the end, I would like to say that we understand that no paper, no document will solve the security problem. But we believe that work on the Charter can unite the vectors of efforts of interested countries and international organizations and form the basis of the process of building the modern security architecture and the formation of a multipolar world order. In Belarus, we believe that parliamentary diplomacy of BRICS, which is a symbiosis of official and people's diplomacy, should also make its contribution to the construction of equal and indivisible international and regional security architecture. Thank you.
Convido para fazer uso
I now invite to the floor
presidente da Câmara Baixa da Índia.
Honorable Presiding Officers, Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, this historic meeting of BRICS Parliament is a powerful and highly significant platform for the collective deliberations on essential reform in the global peace and security framework. It gives me great pride and satisfaction to share India's views on this subject. This topic is deeply aligned with the core principle of BRICS: justice, inclusivity, and representation. It is also reflects that increasing strength of parliamentary diplomacy in the disclosure of multilateral reforms. Excellency, no discussion on the global peace can be complete without addressing the shared threat of terrorism. The recent terrorist attack in the Jammu and Kashmir, India, in which 26 innocent civilians were brutally killed, has deeply shaken us. As Pakistan took no consent actions against the terrorist infrastructure operating from its territory in India exercised its right to respond, prevent future cross-border attack, and upheld deterrence. Under Operation Sindoor, India's actions were targeted and provocative, measured, and responsible. This role's objective was to destroy terrorist infrastructure and neutralize the capability of terrorists. The Indian armed force targeted 9 states, including Bholapur, headquarters of Jail Muskedes, Murikti, headquarters of Lashkar-e-Taiba, and Muzaffarabad, site of the number of anti-India terrorist groups. These 3 places are listed in the United Nations Security Council 1267 monitoring committees with linkage of prescribed terrorists. On the Pakistan request, India agreed to cease fire and cessation of military activity on 10th May. Under the leadership of the Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi, India approaches and new normal in dealing with cross-border terrorism has been clearly demonstrated through Operation Sindoor. Today, India stands firm on the zero tolerance policy towards all forms of terrorism and responds decisively to every act on terror. Our zero tolerance policy against terrorism is informed through robust laws and empowered institutions. India actively participates in global counter-terrorism effort, whether in halting terror financing, sharing intelligence, cooperating in investigations and judicial process, or preventing the misuse of modern technologies. India has long faced challenges of cross-border terrorism. It is imperative that all nations ensure that terrorists are not used in any form of terrorism. The misuse of social media, cyberspace, and the internet by terrorists, especially to spread radicalizations among youth, has become a global challenge. India has been the foremost of this fight. In October 2022, we hosted a special meeting of the UNESCO Counter-Terrorism Committee that adopted the Delhi Declaration. The same year, we had successfully hosted No Money for Terror Conference and Interpol General Assembly. Our goal is clear: unite the world in the fight against terrorism and transnational crimes. It is our collective responsibility to unequivocally condemn terrorism in all forms of take resolute action against it. India, the land of peace and compassion inspired by Lord Buddha and the terrorism of non-violence, also embodies a firm stance against injustice and aggression, a part of the solutions ethos. Excellencies, India believes that we must build a global environment founded on friendship, mutual respect, and cooperation. To this end, India is ready to work in full coordination with the Parliament of BRICS nation. New challenges, greater complexities, and a multipolar arrangement indicates the urgent need to make the global peace and security architecture more inclusive and representative. India is fully committed to the principle of the United Nations Charter, sovereignty, equality, and peaceful. And thank you so much for all of you. Dhanyavad. Jai.
Since we finished the list of speakers, I'd like to highlight we're going to start to the 6th session of the work of the 11th Forum, Parliamentary Forum for BRICS. I declare ended, closed the session.